What's up, guys? Welcome to Tactics Hammer. We are going to look at our first tier list today. We are starting off with the Tyranids in 10th edition. This is certainly not a Bible to use for Tyranid tier lists, but I thought they hadn't been updated in about a month and a half, and a lot has changed since the points first dropped, and many tournament and competitive games have been played, and people have had a chance to sort of feel out the new meta. So I just wanted to get an updated list. Obviously, there are going to be some things that are overlooked, but there's a lot of cool stuff out there. The Tyranids have gone from starting off pretty darn low in the competition, 15th, 16th, somewhere around there, moved up to 11th, and then most recently they are in, I think, 6th, top 6 for competition performance at events. We're going to be looking at three important things here. That's going to be the general strength of the profile compared to the points cost, and that's not thinking about any meta, just looking at points to damage and defensive stats, and then of course how it stands up in the current meta, which is obviously very transport heavy and has a super interesting two sides of, Genestealer cult, super heavy infantry, 20-man squads, and the knights, which are very tanky giants, and then orcs a little bit more horde based. So there's a lot of variety as far as the the horde and the tank meta. It's awesome for Tyranids because we get to choose at the very beginning adaptive trait that will allow us to have sustained hits versus those troops and the lethal hits versus the tanks. So how it stands up in the current meta and how it stands up against a variety of matchups. So obviously the Tyranids are on the up and up. We are going to be taking a look at some of the models that are the reason for that, and we're just going to start left from right here. We're going to do the Forge World. Who cares which one's first? So the Barbed Hierodules first. This one is an interesting model. Points wise, it is, so Barbed Hierodules, 305 for that in the Scythe. The profile on the Barbed Hierodules is interesting, but when you're comparing it to the Scythe Hierodules, you're getting 3d6 from the Scythe Hierodules, which is supposed to be a melee-only profile, which is an amazing melee profile. Compared to the melee profile on the Barbed is pretty good. Losing out on 2 attacks. And then you're losing out on the Irresistible Force, which is the ability to declare a charge in a turn which it fell back. The Scythe Hierodules is actually seeing a lot of play in competition. The Barbed Hierodules, not, when you're comparing the two, you're normally going to pick one. They're both at 305 points, so you're seeing what each one can do. There's a lot of good use for a 3d6 torrent in both overwatching, unfortunately only 1 damage, but still a great profile for shooting. I think that's why it's seeing more play. Still, I think the Barbed Hierodules is pretty close as far as utility, and that I assume I haven't seen a lot of them in play, but they are getting played a lot. I'm assuming they're coming out with rapid ingress and off of strategic reserves, and I've used personally the Scythe Hierodules with a lot of success with that. So I'm going to just put both of them out right now. I'm going to put the Barbed Hierodules at a B, maybe a C. I think both of them have pretty good usefulness and similar profiles, so to put them that far apart would be bad. I'm going to go ahead and put them at A and B. They are just really strong coming out of rapid ingress right now and getting that free movement and then guaranteeing the charge. With a model that big, you're going to cause absolute havoc, and you avoid them being able to be shot off or losing a ton of wounds before they can make it to combat. Okay, so next up we have the Barbgaunts. These are great for holding down an infantry moving army. The problem is, in the current meta, so many of the armies that are running infantry are utilizing other ways to move them, either through the transports, which are really great to hop out and shoot still, or the putting them in reserves. Stick 25% of your army in there and you don't have to pay CP anymore. So the Barbgaunts, they fit this first general strength of profile to points cost, they fit it beautifully, right? They have a really nice profile. They have blast. They have D6 number of shots for so little points. They have the potential to do a lot. The problem is they're never going to get that slow off, and they're obviously terrible in melee. They don't have a ton of things that they do necessarily better than something like, the Zoanthrope's Blast would, while the Zoanthropes are still going to provide you with the ability to target those tanks if you need to, and they have a lot more damage. If you're trying to take out just infantry, you're just going to be better with like the Flamer profile of like the Pyrovore and the Tyrannocyte. So they have a good profile, there's no doubt about it, and they fit a niche. I don't know if I'm going to stick them B or C. I'm going to stick them in C for right now. They're strong. They are strong. I just don't think we need Blast as a Tyranid player. You don't really need it when you have so many other great options. So let's look at this is the Pyrovore, the Biovore here. Yep, see, I was going to do it wrong. So this is the Biovore, obviously. And we'll just grab the Pyrovore right now so that we have both of these guys. They look alike. The Pyrovore, this is tough. He's really strong. We'll put him at the front here for a second. I'll talk about the Biovore. The Biovore is an easy S++++ best unit in your army by far. They made it from 40 to 65 points. They can make it from 65 to 120 points, and you would still take one. It's just too good in all situations. From fixed missions to the tactical, the Biovore is being able to shoot the spores and getting you four corners, getting you homing beacons, getting you so many of these things that can be done by a unit that is eligible to shoot, that doesn't need objective control and sometimes just needs to be in a certain position, while also having the option of alternatively shooting those spores in a position that blocks movement. Never really that good. Or possibly shooting the indirect fire. Also not really that good, but most importantly, they got 4 wounds. They have a decent profile to survive. I faced quite a few games with them against indirect fire, and most of the indirect fire in the game, honestly, it runs out of willpower. It does 1 wound a turn, maybe to at max. Some turns it does 0. And if you really needed to, when they get low, you could always pop the adaptive biology. Not the adaptive biology, the feel no pains on the Biovore, just to give him that extra chance at surviving. But you're probably, even if you're getting targeted by one, unless it's an Imperial Guard player that's got 4 whirlwinds or whatever, the one that's they can run a few of them. But most people are not going to have the points to run 2, 3, and 4, because they're not going to be scouting out just for a Biovore and a Tyranid player. So they'll have like 1 indirect fire that you're going to probably be placing last, as you probably have more units than them. You place your Biovore dead last if they have less than 48 inch range. If they have 48 inch range, just place it down in the back corner early to make them have to place another unit, and accept that he will be shot by the indirect fire every turn and probably live until the 4th or 5th turn still. Unless you're facing Eldar, in which case you're going to lose the Biovore in 1 or 2 turns, and the matchup in general is very, very difficult, so don't know about that one. Mine, I have yet to lose the Biovore, so played him in every single game. Awesome for objective control, well worth the points. S++, best unit in the army. Pyrovore, probably going to stick them in I think an A, really. And that's not just looking at stuff and saying, well, it's an A tier, we should run 3 squads of 3 Pyrovores. They're amazing. The Pyrovore's damage profile is pretty good. What they're more efficient at is sticking 2 of them in reserves, strategic reserves, and walking them off the side, 9 inch range. They don't want to charge anyways, so you're not going to rapid ingress them or anything like that. Just a standard walking off the side of the board edge, and they're so awesome for so many utility plays at 30 points. You can bring them in when your opponent is zoning out your spores and your, for instance, Mawloc trying to land in their back line. You can drop just at the edge of the deployment zone, 6 inches off the edge of the board, 9 inches away from whatever's zoning out your Mawloc or Spores and just burninate it. Just burninate everything. I mean, one of those D6 plus 1 shots, so an average of 4 shots. If you roll up and get the 5th shot, you're probably going to kill whatever that you're attacking. You have the twin linked. You're probably attacking something. Most armies are bringing in, extras from like the Imp Guard that are like toughness 3. So you'll be hitting on 2s and re-rolling. At worst, hitting on 3s against those weak things and re-rolling. So they're great for popping in and plopping off the corners off the board. They're weak units. Something that's like a 12-inch range. Great for burning those off. And then what they're also awesome for is for 30 points, you can bring them in a crucial shooting phase against a unit that's going to be getting cover and just remove cover from them. Just shoot them once, even if they're not useful at all, which is great. So many of these flamer profiles struggle if you go against like knights or something, you become useless. But they have utility. They can shoot the knight. They have potential to do a wound. The twin linked is really not to be underrated. They could misroll their save, and then for the rest of the turn, all the shooting at that, you can lead off with the Pyrovore, then move into the Exocrine for the reroll ones, and then roll everything else and no cover for the rest of that turn. So they're awesome for burning out infantry units, but they're also great for taking out the knights. Something that you're going to be throwing in a ton of shots into. You get to get rid of the cover for the entire turn. So I'll put them in an A spot there. The Broodlord he's really strong for me. The Genestealers have done well for me in nearly every game. They provide such a threat with that scout movement, and if you line them up with a point, they are going to absolutely ravage everything on that point. I'm trying to think which of the two is they're almost hand in hands, right? The Broodlords gives the devastating wounds to the Genestealers, and that's what gives them the true scariness, that they can take out just about anything. Those devastating wounds allow them to, do the damage to things that are, sort of reliant on their invulnerable save, and sometimes have lesser wounds, only 6 or 7 wounds, but an invulnerable save really low. These guys can peel through that no problem with twin linked, 2-up to hit, devastating wounds, and then obviously you're going to target whatever hyper adaptation that's it. Line up against the tanks or the infantry and absolutely blend. You normally get an 8 plus 8 leaves 24 inches minus 16, an 8-inch charge if they've lined up on the line. If they're not lining up on the line, you're already in an advantage in the game because you have an easier time getting those objectives. If they do line up on the line, I think the reroll on the 8 is worth it. The biggest problem with this unit, and why I might be inclined to stick it in B, even though I really do love it, is if you miss that charge and lose the unit, they are really not. That's for 300 points. That's what the 10 squad, and maybe you run something like a 5 to make it a bit more safe, 5 Genestealers and a Broodlord, because that can still blend most things. But even with the 2 wounds that they've been given from last edition to this one, they're going to go down immediately. They've got a 5-up invuln save, and they're almost putting the Broodlord at huge risk themselves, because they have, he has only 5 toughness, but they have a 4 toughness and only a 5 invuln save. You're going to peel right through them with any 2 damage shooting or melee that goes first, if they get charged into. So they don't want to get stuck out. If they do, it feels like you've really wasted a lot of points there. So for that reason, I might stick them. I don't know, they're so strong, but I'm going to stick them in B. And I'll call them both the same. All right, what do we have here? Yeah, it looks like that's that. So that's Carnifex and Old One Eye. This one's an interesting one. I want to pull up the Carnifex profile here. Old One Eye. We'll look at him too. So a lot of people are running these almost hand in hand every time. Other people are just saying the Carnifexes are fine. I'll analyze both here. So this one's mostly we're looking at Old One Eye. He's got about the same melee profile, a little bit better, but then he doesn't have the shooting, so it about balances out. If you're in melee, you're probably doing better because you have Old One Eye than you are with the Carnifex with some guns, but at the same time, the guns, they're good when they're not in melee. So this guy is going to give you the rerolls for the group. He's also going to restore some wounds to himself. Not that great on a 9-wound model, with 9 toughness. They're not going to be able to restore many times before you're dead. He doesn't restore those wounds to his Carnifex squad. He does gain the Carnifex's blistering movement ability, which is cute. Definitely cute. It requires you to be shot at, and the profile of 9 toughness and the wounds of 8 at the same cost, the exact same cost as the Haruspex, and you have to be shot at, and the melee profile is worse than the Haruspex, and it does less things that you want it to than the Haruspex would cover for your army. And what I mean by that is you've got the option to do some tank damage, but it's bad, you know? This is not good. It's decent, but 4 ups, the 3 ups from the old One Eye, it's just not a great compared to Zoanthropes for taking out tanks. So your melee guys are what you're lacking with Nids is sometimes like an army with mid-tier sized bigger units that aren't going to give you a ton of blast shots, because your Zoanthropes are going to handle those blast shots, but like a Custodes army that has a good chunk of wounds and is not going to give your blast profile, Zoanthropes 40 shots to destroy them. They're going to survive the 12 Zoanthropes shooting no problem. Your Exocrine, the Zoanthropes, a squad of Custodes will be fine. And then when they meet this Carnifex in combat and activate their attack first, they're going to rip all 3 heads off of all 3 Carnifexes, and you'll do nothing to them. You'll do nothing. But you'll be great to kill a tank. But then when you get to the tank, oh shit, it's dead because those Zoanthropes already killed it. So I don't understand this one at all, that I'm seeing these in tournaments, even though the Haruspex is difficult to get into combat with running him straight melee. Personally, I'm just pulling him into reserves and just walking him in on the side. If I really want to, I can rapid ingress him in. I'll probably do some other melee, more expensive unit with my rapid ingress, but if I need to, I can rapid ingress him in. But just walk him in close, 9 inches away in a spot that he's not going to die in one turn, and you're way better off than 3 Carnifexes. 3 Haruspexes would be the same cost at 14 wounds versus 8, 3 versus 2 save, the Haruspex having the 3, 8 toughness on the Carnifex, or 9 toughness on the Carnifex versus 11 on the Haruspex. And then I like this profile better. 14 2 damage attacks. This is just, it's going to be better for killing these mid-sized things, But that's just me. Actually, it's not. That's how a lot of people feel, that profile is just generally stronger. But the Carnifexes are seeing a lot of play. I'm going to say that the Blistering Assault, I am not putting the Carnifex in the same tier as the Genestealers. I'm going to stick them here. I'm going to stick them there. Everyone loves them. Everyone's going to hate me for it. Oh my gosh, you got to run the Carnifex. I ran them. They're underwhelming. They're underwhelming. Okay, next we have the Deathleaper. I'm going to group him up with the Lictor. They are basically the same profile. One is a character, the other is not. That is a key difference for a couple of reasons. One, it allows other people to capture points off of you more easily, but 2, it allows you to interact with things as a character model, which allows you to, in some circumstances, gain more points. Also, you can, of course, put the adaptations on the Deathleaper and not the Lictor. The last thing I will mention is the Deathleaper's ability is actually super interesting for causing the battle shock tests. And I think it's in the command phase, which is the useful time that can actually cost them a point. Deathleaper. Let's look at that profile anyways. This is basically the same profile. They have the same melee profile. The Deathleaper is 5 points more, and then you will get the character status and the Fear of the Unseen. While an enemy unit is within 6 inches of this model, worsen the leadership characteristics of the models in the unit by 1. In addition, in the battle shock test step of your opponent's command phase, yes, so perfect. You will, if they are below their starting strength, even 1 is lost. So if you are in the right spot with the Deathleaper, he is causing this test every time at a -1, and you are probably on a point, possibly forcing a unit to fight you while you have fights first. Hopefully that unit is, if you've positioned yourself well, hopefully that unit is not going to be very melee strong, and you can pick them apart. You will hold the point the entire time if you are causing them to fail these battle shock tests, potentially. That's not something to rely on, but I'd say the aura itself, even if you're hiding on like the other side of a wall from them, if you're within 6 inches, like you fall back and another unit's in combat. I've caused a unit to fail a test while this Deathleaper had just fallen back in total fear. So the Deathleaper and the Lictor, I'm going to say that having an infiltrator in your army is very important in the current meta. Not for all missions, but for many of them. And if you position him correctly without at the risk of dying, since it's 12-inch range shooting, he's not that expensive. I'd say the Deathleaper off turns out as a great guy to just run around and do things for you without necessarily like jumping into the big combat right off the bat, because he's just not that strong of a profile. He's not going to take out a whole unit. Lictor just the same way. So I will say probably slightly better the Deathleaper, but Lictor does the same thing. And if you don't want to have too many, like say you're running a 4-character model army, you don't want to give them assassination, then just run the Lictor. Or if you have 5 too many points. Next up, Exocrine. Exocrine, ooh, such an amazing profile. Fits in super perfect with how much he costs, with how many wounds he has, with what he can do in so many situations, and the ways that you can make him not useful are so little. And I'll explain a little more. The toughness and wounds 10 and 14 for 135 points. That right off the bat is great, just like the Haruspex. So we're already looking at in the 8-inch movement. We're looking at 4 OC. There's a lot of good reasons that would make it fill this first category of general strength of profile to points cost. And then for the meta, with a 36-inch range blast weapon that lets you reroll your hits of 1 during that phase, so the shooting phase, it is probably, you gotta have 1 in almost every army, because you're going to have zoanthropes in your army, and they make the zoanthropes so much more effective, while also you will have so many times that these are just blasting tanks, terminators, custodes, so many times that they roll well, because you have such an opportunity with the blast heavy on 2-ups. And then you really just need to get through the wound roll with 8 strength. You're very rarely having to roll 6s. I mean, never really. There's no 16 toughness. So it's always on 5s at a minimum. A lot of times it's 4s, 3s, sometimes even 2s. And you will absolutely shred units with the Exocrine. And then it's amazing for the reroll 1s for the rest of the shooting phase. So for those reasons... and also, if he gets charged, he's probably going to survive the combat. He can shoot out of the combat. His melee is pretty weak, so he's not going to shoot himself out of the combat because he can't shoot into that combat with blast. But you can fire at alternative places and just keep shooting and charge him with something else and solve that problem. Yeah, I think overall he's just a big win for the Tyranids, and probably just a necessity in pretty much any army. I will put him... who else let me ask this? We'll put him at the top of A, but I think I might move him to S. Okay, next up, the Gargoyles. Gargoyles are actually super interesting in 10th edition. They've had a couple of changes, and I've rocked them in all kinds of ways. I've had many troubles with them, many good times, many bad times. I'll talk about the bad times first. This guy has brought me many bad times with the Gargoyles. The Gargoyles are super weak. He is super weak, the Winged Tyranid Prime, and therefore you are giving almost a free kill, or the ability that he gains from the Gargoyles, though he does have the same movement as them, as opposed to his warrior units, which don't gain any... They gain the fly characteristic, but they're still stuck at 6 inches of movement. So he can move with his Gargoyles, but the Gargoyles have assault guns, so they're meant to advance, so you can't charge. Then they're meant to shoot and then move after they shoot, and that reads that you can't charge. And this guy's whole profile is melee. It's not that good of a profile, but my initial thought was that he'd have some cheap Gargoyles to eat up wounds in front of him, and they could charge in and finish something off. But the Gargoyles peppering never kills anything. They're shooting 10 shots. I think I ran, 20 Gargoyle Squad. It still kills nothing. Pepper, whatever it is, unless you're shooting Grots. And even still, the Grots are going to survive. So you got to charge in. So the only scenario that it's good is if you're killing really weak units. And there's so many other things that could do this that there's just no point to have a 20-man or a 10-man Gargoyle Squad and a Winged Tyranid Prime. And then you're sitting there whenever the opponent draws Assassination or needs to kill a character, he goes right through your unit, instantly. A group of Space Marines could probably kill all the Gargoyles and the Winged Prime, or very close to it. So now, that said, the Gargoyles by themselves are super interesting. They have the 6-inch movement after they shoot. They have the assault guns, so they can each turn move, advance, and then shoot for 6 more inches, potentially moving 24 inches a turn. So awesome giant movement, very cheap cost. They can serve as zoning, just like the Neurogants could. So they're good for multiple options. It's good to have these things that they fill a purpose, but they can fill, when you fight Genestealer cults and the entire army is in deep strike, you don't need the Gargoyles to run off and capture points. You need them to stand at the front and zone. You need them at the front. You need the Neurogants at the front. You need the Tyrannocytes at the front, things that are expendable, and then the other stuff layers back as less important things. So they can play an important role. They can run straight to the front, zone. They can tie up a unit in combat if they need to. They're not going to survive the combat, but they can do whatever you need to do because they have that movement. They can go pop the Genestealer cults little circles by getting within 9 inches of them with that giant movement. So for 75 points, I think these are pretty much a must-have. And for that reason, even though when you look at their general strength of profile to points cost is very bad, it is almost a requirement in the meta to have zoning and to have units that are good for capturing points. 2 OC on this cheap of units, very good for capturing points. That's what they're made for. So they do their job perfectly. For that reason, I am going to put them in... I want to put them in A, but I don't know if they're more useful. I think they are. One squad, like the potential of like a Genestealer unit. Imagine this being near the barbed. Yeah, he's got to be down here. The potential of a Genestealer unit to wipe a whole squad and change the tide of a battle is definitely higher than the Gargoyles, but they're just going to be there doing their job always. So I'm going to put them at the bottom of A. Hierodules, not looking good. Hierodules did not do so great with the update. He is looking at 655 points, a little bit cheaper than he was, but that profile is just it's not enough for that much. The wounds are nice. How many dire biocannons does he get? I'm gonna look at 2, that's it. D6 plus 6, I mean, if you want to play something giant and it's good, just go with the Hierophant. He's actually kind of sneaky strong right now. Hierodules, I'm going to stick down here in D. Haruspex. This one is one of those models that fills the general strength of profile to points cost perfectly, but he's kind of tough to get really good use out of. Even if he doesn't, he is getting a lot of sunken shots into him because his melee profile is so scary, and just because he's a giant bug with scary tentacles coming out of his mouth, I feel like that makes people really want to target him. Now, you can just take him, put him in strategic reserves, and either rapid ingress him, or just save yourself the CP and just bring him in safely. He does the tongue lick. In my last game against Knights, he ate a Knight. The tongue lick was lethal, and he actually did it twice in a row, 2 lethal tongue licks for a total of like 11 damage, and one of them finished off a Knight Vanguard or whatever the white one is. Just ate it completely. He was very full after that game. So don't expect that very often from your tongue lick. It normally just misses. It's one attack. That said, it's a cool thought feature that he's got the precision. He can reach into the unit and just rip out the leader and pull him back. This guy is coming off the side and getting into combat. He's felt pretty strong, but he sometimes struggles to get into combat and stay there and like hold points and stay relevant for 5 turns is almost impossible. Even 4 are 3 turns. He's got a good profile. He scares other people away, but he's easy to avoid. And yeah, for that reason, I'll put him down here in B. But very, very good profile, just tough to make him work. The Hierophant, man, this guy is a beast. He is in the new meta with a Tyrant, allowing you to Overwatch on him for free. He is going to melt everything in sight. Look at this thing. It's so sneaky good. So we're looking at the Dire Biocannon, just like the Harridan, except we also have this 12-inch 3d6 assault torrent flamethrower that's just going to absolutely level any troops. And then the Dire Biocannon is going to do all the extra work. D6 plus 6. Is that the same Dire Biocannon that the Harridan had? D6 plus 6? Yeah. So yeah, not terrible, I guess, for the points on the Harridan, but the reason I like the Hierophant a lot more is this is not his flamer profile. You might wonder what I mean by that. He has, of course, the infantry models that can be carried, and you can just fill him with Pyrovores, and under the new rules, they are the perfect unit to stick in there. They can hop out. Oh, no, they can't charge because you moved. You don't need to charge with them. They're terrible in melee, and you just explode fire all over whoever's in 18 inches or beneath range. So the Torrent's pretty good, but you're going to be pairing it with 3, 6, however many Pyrovores you want to stick in there for fun. Super funny. He's got such a big model that you can basically put these Pyrovores fucking anywhere you want. You put them at your neighbor's house. So they're going to come out wherever they want to be. They're going to light whatever they want on fire. And then he's going to, on his turn with the Dire Biocannon, handle everything else. He has the 30 wounds. From there, he's kind of similar to the Harridan, but being able to carry those and then having this awesome melee profile, I think it just makes him really, really good. Each time this model makes an attack that targets a unit that is battle shocked, add 1 to the hit roll. That's kind of cutesy. If you have some stuff to make things get battle shocked during the turn, that would be one of the few times that is very utilized. It could be pretty fun against like a Custodes army if you could get them to get battle shocked with like the Deathleaper or some of the various others. You can make them take like 3 or 4 tests in a turn, and if you could get one of them to fail, then they won't be able to use their auto, all their stupid stratagems. So anyways, I digress. I will stick this guy. I want to put him in A, but I'm gonna behave myself and stick him in mid tier B. But he's really strong. He really is. You don't want to run him too many times because it's like the rules are convoluted. I'm like, oh, what is this map? Is there runes? Are the runes not? They're too tall for him to walk over. So can he technically even stand on this map in the first place? Can he make a single step on the map? Does he need to? No. He could just fire the cannons from where he stands and let the Pyrovores out, but whatever. We'll put him here. Hive Guard, these guys they finally have a different profile. They are indirect fire. They've got a pretty cutesy profile for overwatching. It may be strong if you stick a full group. It's just such a point sink. Sorry, Hive Guard. It's just such a point sink to get the full squad of these, which would be the only way to really make them as equal utility to the Tyrannocyte in an Overwatch. Hive Guard, yeah. 200 points, literally the same cost as Tyrannocyte. And I just don't think that there are many things that they are going to be doing. Maybe they'll shoot like a vehicle better than a Tyrannocyte, but at the same time, why, know what your army's doing, what you need this unit to do, and is it doing it better than other units? Is it doing it better than the Zoanthropes? No way. There's no way that this anti-vehicle 2-up, you roll it 1,000 times, it's not going to outdamage the Zoanthropes for equal cost, hardly ever. So then you're thinking that the indirect fire would probably be the only other option. It's like a 36-inch range. It's just, who are you trying to take out? If you have a full squad of these and they have a Biovore on the field, it's like, man, you got him. But then it's a lot of points just to take the Biovore out, and what if they didn't have it? So I I think even with the defensive stance, the change of profile, there's just too many other things that do everything that the Hive Guard do better. So I think, yeah, right here is a fine spot for them. Bottom of C. Okay, Foot Tyrant. I think we'll take the Foot Tyrant and put him in the second one in S. I'm going to go ahead and do that right away, even though it's maybe a bit preemptive. I think we're doing it. He is a very strong profile. He has the very important free stratagem use. He can still have his Tyrant Guard. So the Will of the Hive Mind is on the Winged Hive Tyrant and the Foot Tyrant. The Foot Tyrant has they now have an equal profile, at least. Last edition, he had a 3-up and less toughness. So they both have 210. But the problem is that the Foot Tyrant is the only one that can be in the Tyrant Guard. And there are, when you choose a Warlord, there are many things like the Knights that are trying to target your Warlord. You're basically just, if you're running the Winged Hive Tyrant, you're going to be zoning yourself out, trying to shoot this cannon, hiding him in corners to avoid him getting shot off, and he's still probably going to die. Just take the Tyrant Guard. They're stupidly cheap right now. Their offensive profile is poopy, but like all the more reason to have them, that they're just wounds to soak up for so little points. You know, a squad of 3 is like 95 points to soak up 12 wounds at a 3-up. You are reducing your toughness from 10 to 8 in the squad, but I mean 8's still pretty good. So I'm gonna say with the Tyrant Guard, that's the profile you're gonna want to run. And of course, the Will of the Hive Mind is the reason that he is S tier. The Tyranids are given the free stratagem, but this is the once per turn, not once per battle round, which means you can use it 10 times a game potentially, and you will use it if they keep him up 10 times a game. There are so many different Tyranid strats that you can use it on. Even right off the bat, as I've been playing more and more, you can use the opening double adaptations. You know, just toss it on like your Genestealers as they run off to battle, so you can give them lethal and sustained if they charge into like a monster that's leading infantry, just like the Hive Tyrants group is. So if your Genestealers charge into a Hive Tyrant group with Tyrant Guard, you're going to get lethal and sustained hits and devastating and twin linked if they're on a point. So absolutely mash over them. The Will of the Hive Mind, obviously, through the rest of the game becomes incredible. That I did realize today that it will cost, if they have one of the increasing stratagems cost by 1, it actually does activate after this 0 from this one. So this will reduce the stratagem to 0 cost, and then they will increase the cost by 1. So let's say your Overwatch, which is what people are using it on most of the time. The Overwatch costing 1 extra will basically make it cost 1 again instead of 2 if you use the free. Now it's going to cost 2 if you don't use this one. So they can still zone you out with that. That said, there are so many, the adaptive biology or the feel no pains on anything in synapse range 5 up, not in synapse range 6. The crits on 5 up, the fights after death, I use that one all the time. I put the synapse on the Genestealers, they run off into battle. If this guy's in range, he gives the free. A lot of times I'll just take the free and put it on something around the army that is near the Hive Tyrants, maybe restore some of the Gargoyles back to life if they've taken some wounds, and then let the synapse that's on the Broodlord be used to activate the fight back in case they, get caught up in combat and they're about to die. They can still, if half the squad can attack, they'll probably wipe whoever they got wiped by. So he's great. He opens up so much freedom for you to use your stratagems, because you always know, as long as you keep him at home, he is going to be able to provide those stratagems for your home base. And then this Onslaught aura is amazing. You can center around your zoanthropes, just basically your whole firing at home army, the Exocrine, anything that is the Carnifex, they can all benefit from having the assault ability. And there are so many situations where your movement, where what they move to, you can't predict every single movement that's going to happen. Having the extra movement of an advance and being able to shoot is so crucial. And you can, once you figure out how to gimmick it, you can sort of, you roll your advance. If you get a big enough advance, then, you might be able to do all the movement with the Exocrine to get in range of the Hive Tyrant. And you save the Hive Tyrant's movement and then move the Hive Tyrant a little bit away so that you can help share this assault aura with, you know, some zoanthropes that are a bit slower and can't quite get where they need to go without their advance. So absolutely, both of these are super great and make your opponent wish they could kill off. They're trying to peel through the Tyrant Guard wounds. The Tyrant Guard aren't that strong in melee anyway, so while you're losing those wounds, you're not even losing that much. The Hive Tyrant himself, I run him with probably a ranged weapon. His extra attacks aren't that great. They're pretty good, but I love the twin-linked Monstrous Bone Sword. Absolutely smashes anything. 2-up weapon skill. It's probably oftentimes have sustained or lethal on it. And then these ranged weapons that you can fire out of combat into another combat, or, you know, just in general at 36-inch range. I've been using the Stranglethorn Cannon. I just feel like it's a bit better than the Venom. Yeah, that's his whole profile. There's just no doubt. Assault, the free stratagems, and generally just a nice profile. Alright, we'll do the Gaunts next. The Termagants and Hormagaunts. These are a tough call. This is a Horde army. Horde armies they're not doing too bad because of how the meta is shifted so far. The Genestealer cult is making it a little bit more difficult for them as people are throwing in more and more blast weapons and torrent weapons to deal with that stuff. The profile for the Hormagaunts got a little better, but they're still like, where are they going? What are they doing? What can they kill? Yeah, you've got a lot of lethal hits you might be able to peel through, but you're never going to have minus, so you're dealing with so many high save things that you can never really kill, having to do 6s to damage, and then, you know, 2-up saves. So, yeah, they can win maybe objective-wise. It's certainly not a fun way to play. I haven't played them enough. I've only played them in like 2 or 3 games with like a heavy amount of them. I'll say for the Horde style of play, it struggles right now, and I'm going to leave them down here. And that's not to say that that alt method like isn't, if you use 300 Gaunts and you just move them all to the points and you've got one Biovore in the back, you know, maybe. I haven't played it like that. All right, so the Maleceptor, this one is being played a lot in tournaments. I like its profile. I like what it says. When I see it in play, in the games I've seen it, and there's a lot of them. There have been a lot of them. It isn't getting the job it needs to done, right? It's got a cool range profile, but its aura requires it to be close and around units that are below half strength. But the melee profile's kind of meh, and it just doesn't have the defensive capabilities to just run straight down the middle, sort of like the Haruspex doesn't. You know, like a Tyrannocyte with the minus to damage can. But a Maleceptor at 11 toughness, 3-up save, he has the 4 invuln, so he's definitely a bit tougher. This is probably the main reason people are running him more, is these other big bugs are definitely struggling to these subtractions to AP. When you have like a 3-up save on your Exocrine, you got to be careful with him. If he gets around, you know, a lot of shots that have minus 2 AP, you know, you're looking at a lot of minus 5 saves. That's not a good situation for you. So yeah, he has a good overall profile, right? He fits this first tick box for sure. He's not a lot of points. I think it's like 145 for a Maleceptor. 165 for a Maleceptor. Yeah, it is a little bit more than the others. So for the profile, it's pretty darn good. A nice shooting profile. Melee profile, very meh. The aura is the biggest thing for me, and the reason I'm not putting it so high is I just don't ever see people getting it in the right place, getting within that 6-inch range, and without like getting into combat with it. And maybe you do want to get into combat with it, but it just doesn't seem like you're able to get it. Just, you know, you can't just run it right down the middle of combat. It's sort of like sitting in the back and then joining after, and it's just not doing enough for me to be like super high tier. For the, like, you know, if you see it played in that many tournaments, you'd expect it to be high A. I'm gonna put it down. Put it down low A here. Put it down right there. High B. Haruspex or Maleceptor. Yeah. All right. I'm gonna put him there. You know what's funny is I run these 3 and not him as often, but I'm still gonna rank him higher. I'm trusting the people, I guess, too much there. Alright, Tervigon's next. We're going to put the Tervigon probably right around here, right by her little brood, where she belongs, even though she can't be protected by them. She is one of the stronger Nids. Didn't get lucky on her profile toughness to match the Tyrannocyte. Toughness 12 or toughness 11 did not get the 12. The melee and range profile stayed about the same. Took the same hits that everyone else would, but the problem is she's giving lethals within 6 inches, so she's with her Tervigonts, makes sense, close to them. She's spawning them, makes sense, close to them. But something's missing. Something very important is missing here. She can't be protected by the Gaunts. And I get that they were probably struggling because she was being too protected by the Gaunts. But, like, that's too bad. Like, what? I don't want her. Like, I get maybe somebody doesn't want to shoot through this 2-up save, but, like, you just do it, right? You just go ahead and take the shots and do it because her only value is in what she does throughout the game. She's not shooting you or damaging you heavily while you're shooting her. She's just hoping to survive a long time and give the lethal hits. And once she's down, no more lethal hits, no more spawning Gaunts, and I don't know, a Horde Gaunt group is still going to want her for the time that she's alive, but I think they just don't work too well together. All right, so next up is the Mawloc. Mawloc is doing pretty good in this one, actually. I like the Mawloc just for what he can provide. He's one of those sneaky good guys that there's a lot of units that are very, very tough, and to be able to pop him in a spot that will allow him to, with rapid ingress and deep strike, allow him to get 2 or 3 units in range of his Terror from the Deep. And I've killed a Knight with the Terror from the Deep. I have killed 3 Adeptes Custodes with it in one shot. So these guys that have, that one was a pretty lucky roll because they have the mortal protection and they still didn't roll well. But this guy has a great profile for taking out some big stuff when the landing, and then immediately whatever he's going to run into combat with on the back line, whatever small units, Grots back there, Imperial Guard, a scout squad, a sniper squad, and whatever's back there that he is popping up with the rapid ingress on your turn after you've moved, you can turn and shoot him with those 5 guys, those 10 guys, those 15 guys that are there. They're not going to kill him. 10 toughness, 14 wounds, 3-up save. You get to choose where he's put, so don't put him in a place where he can be shot because they can't move afterwards. He's going to move and automatically charge and wipe that group, and then he has the back line. It's his. And I've done that a ton of games. You just create this blob in the front that they need to move towards, and then the Mawloc replaces the spot in the back. The Spore Mines, and you're shooting with the Exocrine. Hopefully you can clear out some of these spaces while they're trying to move and shoot the Spore Mines. They end up leaving some opening that allows you to hit 9 inches away from everything and be 12 inches away from like 2 or 3 models. Surprising how often you can get three units with this ability. And then the Battle Shock test is a nice added bonus there. So yeah, he's not that expensive either for 10 toughness, 14 wounds. The offensive profile is not the most amazing thing, but remember, doing what needs to be done when you pop up in the back, people don't leave a bunch of 2-wound models in the back very often. It's normally they're guys that are, farming the objectives, that are long range, that are very susceptible to 8 damage minus 2 AP 1, or 8 strength minus 2 AP 1 damage, 16 attacks. So this is good profile, very good in a lot of situations, and I'm going to put him in A tier. These spores, move them back here. What do we got? Neurogants. This is fun. I remember when we all first saw the Neurogants profile, we were like hoping they would be something new or different, or like maybe a psychic shooter bug, or like what could they do? And like the profile came out and it was like, oh, they can't do anything. And everyone immediately was jumping to the conclusion that Neurogants were awful, and I was probably maybe I was part of that group. Who knows? But they're not awful. They are, in fact, incredible. When you play more and more, maybe I'd taken too much time off from 9th. but you need someone to zone your area. You need, especially when you're running a Biovore, these guys can sit right around the Biovore every single in 10th edition when you can put people in strategic reserves, melee units, or maybe not super, small or easy to move around, not high movement. Stick them in strategic reserves. They're going to be coming off strategic reserves, and they're going to be coming for your Biovore's ass. And you do not want them to be coming out deep striking right on top of him, to be strategic reserving right off the side. So these guys are going to handle zoning out for you. You're definitely going to want a few zone options in your army. You need, fight one, go play one Genestealer cult game and feel the fear of 12 units in deep strike. And you tell me that you don't need more zoning in your army, and that 45 points for 11 units doesn't feel amazing in that moment. And it does. It absolutely does. And a lot of times it would probably feel amazing to have two groups of these, but I'm not going to run two. They have, they saved the day earlier today in a Depth-based Custodes fight, so I can't act like they do nothing. They sat and zoned for the Biovore in the entire game, and then I figured out the best way to charge Custodes when they have attacks first on everything is just charge with the Neurogants and lock them into place so that they can't pile into the rest of your units to fight, and then just charge the tips and only fight one Custodes. So they do a lot of good stuff. They can zone for you, not just in preventing deep strikes, but in creating little lines that prevent movement without getting in engagement range, forcing themselves to be shot and basically eating up bullets that would probably rather be elsewhere. So for that reason, I'm going to stick them up in A tier. They're just a necessity in the army. The Neurotyrant has a decent profile, but for the points, I think everyone was expecting more, a higher cost being a Tyrant and more out of him, sort of just like a more psych-based profile. But this definitely gives more variety to the army than would just a psychic base, because psychic is just shooting, so it would just be more like a Hive Tyrant with a weak melee profile. So this is just sort of a cheaper Hive Tyrant. The problem with him is, now I haven't used the Gaunts for zoning and joining him in the zoning. 18-inch range is a big issue with him. He's a psychic, terrible melee profile unit that is led by, Tyrant Guards are pretty bad profile. I guess if you give them the add 1 to the hit roll, no, they're still terrible. So neither of these benefit much from that bonus, and they're both pretty bad in melee. He's pretty bad in melee. His range is 18-inch range. So what is he doing? Where is he going? This is fun. This is really fun to subtract 1 from the battle shock test, but after you've done 10, 15, 20 of these, you realize that you're not winning many games off them. You got 1 in 5 games where it actually gets you a point, that the point loses the battle shock test, and for that reason, I don't find a lot of use for him at all. For that reason, I'm going to put him in low C. Yeah, above the Hive Guard. We'll put him above the Gaunts. And we're going to move this guy. Okay, Parasite of Mortrex. I love this model. I had been trying to make him work. I thought with the Lone Operative and Deep Strike that I might be able to just drop him in on Grots and things in the back and sort of work up some Ripper Swarms and maybe actually make it happen. The dream of a Parasite of Mortrex, cleaning out a whole squad, coming out with 3 Ripper Swarms, heading over to his next squad, and oh look, it's another squad of Grots or fucking weak guard, and they tears them up, and now he's got 6 Rippers, and he's making his own Ripper army, and he's tearing through everything, and all the Ripper Swarms are everywhere. But they're not, and never you get 1 Ripper Swarm at most. He has a terrible defensive profile, 5 toughness, 4 up save, 5 wounds. This is sort of in line with what stealth units have had, but these stealth units are doing things that this Parasite is not. They aren't costing 80 points a lot of times. They're having a ranged attack. They have one-off abilities that are detonate a thing and do mortal wounds to something. They have Infiltrator, so they can actually start up close. There's so many other things that this guy just has Deep Strike. Deep Strike's not even that useful. If you don't rapid ingress him in and he misses the 9-inch charge, he's gonna miss the 9-inch charge. they turn and they walk things in. Sure, it costs them because they have to walk things in range of him, and that's more difficult to take points. That's not a good reason for something to be good. So he's got great movement. It's just like wherever he arrives, his combat's just not enough at 7 attacks to win fast enough to keep himself from getting murdered by whatever's outside of the combat. And he might die in the combat too. I'll put him right here. I haven't used him out of Deep Strike enough. I just don't see where he'd be good there either, but we'll withhold that decision. Psychophage, this one also fills the not great profile for me for the cost. His cost isn't that high. 125. That's a lot. I thought you were less than that. He's too much. 10 wounds, 9 toughness. Already, compared to the other bugs, I don't like it. Friendly Tyranid unit within 6 inches have the feel no pain. It is a nice aura. He is not an infantry unit, so he can't move like the Venomthrops can through walls and share this aura. He's going to poke his little butt out. He's got no one to give him anything but, like, you know, the Zoanthropes are going to give him a 6-up aura save, like 9 toughness, 10 wounds. The first decent gun on your enemy's army that has greater than 10 strength is going to wipe the floor with this guy. It's going to just push him right off the board. His melee profile, devastating, anti-psyker 2+. That is really cool. So, you know, if you end up running him and hit 1,000 Suns army and you've got like 3 Psychophages, I mean, you're going to fucking wreck him. You're going to absolutely wreck him, son. Anti-psyker 2-up devastating on 2 damage. D6 plus 1's not a lot, but just anti anything 2-up with devastating is actually really silly. You'll just peel through their whole unit, and hopefully you have like sustained as well. So I have not run him in more than 2 games, so for that reason I will stick him. I don't stick everyone mid C. We're gonna get some boys. We're gonna drop these Hive Guard down to D, just to add some balance here. We're gonna stick him in the middle. It's supposed to be a little bit thicker in C and B, but come on. All right, Ravagers. These are pretty weak. Their cost is just too much, if I remember correctly. Why am I... Man, it's late. Raveners. I just called them Ravagers. I was like, what am I... All right, Raveners. So we are looking at cost. 75 for 3. Yeah. So I'd say a better option than them would be that can do similar job, because this profile is just like 7. It's twin linked, but we're at 5 -1 1. What are we killing? What are we doing? You know, what are we trying to take out? This ranged weapon is poops duties, not killing anything. Maybe we're taking out some guard, you know, so we're killing, that's what we're killing. We're killing guard, we're killing boys, we're killing beast snaggers, I guess. Why would you use him over, like, there's so many other profiles that can run them down better with the flamers and respond on their turn. Yeah, and I'm gonna say if you're doing something almost directly like these guys for that cost, let's look at the warriors with range bio 70, and what a deal. 70 compared to 75, and you're gonna like this profile. You're gonna like the way you look in it, I guarantee it. With ranged bioweapons, yeah, this I mean, the melee one's just silly. This profile is so much better. So most important thing, you can fall back and charge and shoot in a turn, allowing you to, every single time you're in combat and they do not target you or clean you out, you can just jump back, shoot them, charge back in, and have first attacks again. The profile's pretty darn strong in melee, 5 attacks for such a cheap cost, and you still have 3-up weapon skills, still got the -1 AP, still got 5 strength, so just generally just better. So we'll put the Raveners right here. Nah, we'll put them here. Rippers down there. Screamer Killer, this guy he's doing his best. He is just doing his best. He looks amazing, but the point cost from before to now, it went up. And, you think they'd lean into a new model more like League of Legends does when they come out with a new skin. But this guy, just comparing to the other Carnifexes, he doesn't parse out super well. And then, comparing him to actually strong units, he's got this Assault Blast that is, it's pretty interesting. And he causes a Battle Shock test and subtracts 1 from the test. And then the melee profile is... There's just nothing here, Where's the Twin Linked? Where's the Devastating something? Man, he needs something. He just doesn't have enough things, 10 regular attacks for an all-out melee monster who costs 180 points. Nah, no thanks. I'll just take a Tyrannocyte. He can attack in combat. He doesn't get -1s to hit. He's almost the same cost. And he's going to get D6 plus 6, 2 damage, auto-hitting torrents, and then his melee and the Stinger Salvo. He's not terrible, but he's definitely below the Carnifexes and Old One Eye. Somewhere around there. Sporocyte, I don't like it at all. There, jeez, right oversight. Okay, Tyrannocyte. Yeah, so the Sporocyte is... The mucilid spores are kind of strong. I've only played it in one game, I think, so I have not gotten my head around how to use it properly. I have heard that the Sporocyte is pretty strong, so I don't want to underrate it. I'm going to stick it top end to C because I just don't think it has super great competitive play. I'm going to take this piece of garbage and stick it right here. If you need something to transport as NIDs, first of all, probably don't. Second of all, I guess just use the Hierophant, because this thing is... The points cost is barely reduced from 9th. It lost all of its guns. They just tore the profile apart, and there's just no use. When I first thought about it, I was like, maybe I'll use it coming off the reserves. It doesn't make any sense. Just bring the unit off reserves on your own. You have no reason deep striking with it, right? Can you deep strike with this thing? No, I'm not even gonna pull it open. It's terrible. It's terrible. I don't like it. I don't like it one bit. Swarmlord. Swarmlord is too expensive. Oh, I want to play him every round. It's so great to have the denial. It's so many other armies have access to that denial for so much cheaper, but because that denial is so up at a hit or miss, there's so many armies that can utilize, if somebody denies my Overwatches, I am using the Feel No Pains, I'm using the Fightbacks on death, I'm using the crits more. There's so many other things that you can be pushing into. I'm not saying that, listen, I want to get rid of your Overwatches every time. I really do. I just don't, NIDs don't have an easy time making that happen. There are certain armies that, if you are really leaning into an infantry army, then you probably need to run the Swarmlord with some Tyrant Guard just to deny that Overwatch on the first turn and forever make it more expensive. His profile in melee got pretty wrecked compared to how other people's did. He did okay, but for his point cost staying the same, he just lost a lot. His ranged Psychic Torrent is really strong. D6 plus 3, and then 5-1. The 2 damage is nice, but it's not enough on its own, right? You're not going to leave him out into range to use this. It is still usable in melee combat. It's a torrent, so he's not going to lose the shots, and he can shoot it right into the group in front of him. So, yeah, it adds to his melee profile for sure. He is strong with these attacks. He will do damage, no doubt, just like your Hive Tyrant would if it gets into melee. But you can only get 1 CP. So if you run into one of those missions that lets you mine CP off your home base, you're not going to be able to get another one from that. His abilities are strong, definitely. At 250 points, it's a big sink, and you're going to lose those abilities right when he dies. And 10 toughness, 10 wounds, he's got to have the guard with him to stay alive. He gets a 9-inch synapse. That's not that great. Yeah, so gotta run the guard. You're ending up costing, 350, 400 points, 350 points, somewhere in there. It's a lot. It's a big investment. Situationally is good, so I talk about this one right here. How it stands up against a variety of matchups. There are so many matchups where he is not going to be, the malign presence is not going to heavily negatively affect them, and they can take out the Swarm Lord in a relatively short period of time to get rid of this 1 CP bonus. And you would just wish at that point that you had the two per turn free stratagems rather than this. It's a tough call. I'd say because of the points difference, I'm going with the Foot Tyrant, but I'm still gonna stick Swarmy up there because I think if the Foot Tyrant's gone, you're just going with Swarmy instead of the Hive Tyrant. So we'll put him at the bottom of A. Nah, we'll put him at the right here. Nah, we'll keep these guys behind him. I want to move him down, but I feel like he is just really good. I'm constantly comparing him to the Foot Tyrant because he's such like a similar profile, and you're gonna run one or the other. But still good. Okay, Toxicrine, probably right there. Too many points. 200 points. You're looking at a Tyrannocyte instead. You'd much rather have this. Has the anti-infantry. Grasping Tendrils. His melee profile got hit kind of hard. Still with the anti-infantry 2 up if you can get him. Yeah, no, there's just no way to get him any other way to utilize that. So he's going to eat Space Marines, which is nice. You need that in the army. That's a good... To get 10-man squads, something to take out these 10-man 2-wound squads is important. There aren't a lot of other things, and the melee seem to be the best equipped for that. But I just think you'd rather have a Haruspex doing the job at 80 points less it's not that much. I'm over. Yeah, it's Toxicrine 200, yeah, at 75 points less for the same wounds, for the same toughness, for the same save. For a similar melee profile, just for this aura? What? Silly. Just so silly. I don't know. I want to compare him just to that and drop him way down here. But I guess, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. He's just silly compared to, like, what? Why would you take him over Haruspex? Alright, Trigun. Try again. Okay, Trigon is, I think this guy's like 180, yeah. He's expensive. 14 moods, 10 toughness. He's, yeah, I don't know. He's got a similar profile to the Mawloc. He's got a lot more damage than the Mawloc, so he's going to be like the melee, handle a tank, handle a Custodes, handle a Terminator group. But I think you're better off letting... the Zoanthropes handle the tank, and then the Custodes, Terminator groups, there's just probably stuff, the melee is best for that. I just don't know if the Trigun at 180 points is the best. I think maybe like a Tyrannocyte is solid for it, the 2 wounds, and has damage reduction for that same cost. The subterranean tunnel's nice. The model set up 9 inches. Subterranean. Each time this model is set up on the battlefield using Deep Strike ability, it can be set up anywhere on the battlefield that is more than 3 inches away horizontally from all enemy units. When doing so, if this model is set up within 9 inches or more of one enemy units until the end of turn, it's not eligible to declare a charge. So basically you could rapid ingress him in 3 inches away. He's not able to charge, which he's already not, and then 3 inches away, nowhere to run. I don't know. It just doesn't seem, you don't need to do that. You could just rapid ingress him in and then move and charge him. So I'm gonna say sustained hits. Yeah, the profile's pretty good. I haven't run him enough. But I just think other things can do what he does better than he does. Alright, melee warriors. I'm going to stick these guys. These guys are too expensive, man. They are just... The profile... The profile just doesn't match how much more it costs than the range warriors, when the range warriors are arguably better. Arguably better in melee, because they can back up and charge again. That doesn't get off that often. So there's the range. The melee profile, the biggest thing is they have the makes a melee attack, reroll a hit of 1, saving throw, reroll a saving throw of 1. It's alright. You can have full rerolls on Genestealers that would be way better than this. They're equally as gonna die for the same amount of points. 4-up save, no invuln. The Genestealers have 2 wounds and a 5 invuln and are less points. They have 6 attacks twin linked. The Genestealers can get themselves 5 twin linked. So 2 ups, and so why the melee? Why are they getting 3 ups? I don't understand this. Yeah, they got the reroll hit of 1, I guess. So that counteracts that. Which gives you a better chance of fishing your 6s. So it's just like a 2-up. It's kind of a cutesy 2-up. I don't see the use for that in Hive value. So I'm going to say the Tyranid, the ranged warriors struggle to get in and get their stuff done, because if you just target them, they can't retreat and shoot and charge again. But for their low cost, they require you to shoot them, or they can do a pretty good amount of damage. So I'll put them in low B. I'll put the ranged warriors. I'm gonna put the Toxcreen down here. Yeah, feel better about that. The melee warriors, they'll come back up here. Okay, Tyrannocyte. Let's there we go. We got our third. I'll put him up right there. Third in S tier. This guy is... I knew it right away. I don't know. It felt like other people were saying 200 points is a lot. It's not about the points. The second that profile came out and it moved over from the Carnifex to something with this many wounds, there are so few things that can rip a 16 wound model with damage reduction of 1 off the board relatively quickly. So often things are running away in terror from him. He has 9 inches of movement. I've been using him as 8 lately. I forgot that he had 9. So he has an incredible movement profile, enormous wounds, starts at a 2-up save, gets the only 12 wounds on any non-Forge World model, OC value of 5, which is higher than any of the other big bugs, leadership 8-up. That is poopy. You want to beat it? Yeah, that's it. I never noticed so he can definitely fail some leadership roles. He's got no leadership. He's an angry man. But other than that, we are taking... These things are maybe the Rupture Cannon with the Exocrine if, you're hoping to run into Knights. But really, why are you running the Rupture Cannon? Why? Just run Zoanthropes and do that job. Do the job with the best bug for the job. The best bug for the job is the Zoanthropes for tanks. This is the best bug for the job with this D6 plus 6 Torrent and averaging 9 shots. They're automatically going to hit. He doesn't remove cover with this, which is rare for Torrent abilities, but still 2 damage, minus 2 AP, 6 strength. Hitting on, if you're targeting the right models, you're hitting on 3 ups, and you are going to just kill a lot of stuff with this gun. For it's not the most amazing offensive profile for 200 points, but it is a very strong offensive profile. And then you shoot the Stinger salvos as well. His melee profile is pretty weak, but you must consider that his melee profile includes the acid spray, of course, because he can shoot it out of melee with no minus to hit, because there are no hits. And then the resilient organism and everything else makes his profile awesome. He is, because of the high movement, still great utility. For all those reasons, I got to keep him in S. He's been useful in every game, and I've hardly found games where he isn't, making things happen. Tyrant Guard, they were a lot more expensive, and for that reason, you tried to run like maybe 6 sometimes. Tried to get them into melee with your Hive Tyrants, maybe sneak around, you're hopeful that they could survive. And it felt a bit weird because their job is to guard, but at the same time, their melee was basically equivalent to the Hive Tyrant's melee. The group of guard would do about the same as the Hive Tyrant does. That is not the case anymore. The Hive Tyrant is probably better than all 3 of the Tyrant Guard melee combined. In fact, almost definitely better. These melee profiles are pretty bad, but they are down to 35 points. They still have 4 wounds. Their save is up to a 3-up, which is unfortunate, but they're up to 8 toughness. This is huge. So this toughness allows them to not cost so much. A lot of times your leader, like the Broodlord, goes from 5 to 4 with the Genestealers. He can end up being in a bad situation. 8 doesn't put you in that bad situation that often. So these guys are going to be a great way to soak up. I just take 3 of them, 95 points, and basically add 12 wounds onto my Hive Tyrants. And that's going to allow him to get those abilities off, and the Swarmlord to gather his CP. So for both of those reasons, he's keeping the big boys alive. They're doing their job perfectly. Their melee's kind of weak, but that's not what they're there for. They're taking up space, so adding some zoning in there, and in the off chance that you don't target them at all, they are there to swing their big claws. Are we adding too many S's in a row here? I don't think so. I think knowing that these do their job and that the Hive Guard and Swarmlord are very important, and these are a necessity with them, that they kind of just fill into that role. Venomthropes, I like the Venomthropes right now. The Venomthropes are very useful. I started using them pretty much in all of my lists now. They're super cheap at 70 points. They're giving you the aura just like they did before. The aura is going to give your big bugs cover, which is not that big a deal. And then, of course, your little bugs are going to gain stealth, which is going to give them -1 to hit. That is awesome to have on anything, right? And these guys act just in the same way that the Neurogants do. When you start to use them more and more, you see that you don't need them. Their melee profile is kind of weak. You don't need to ever get them into melee, right? They can just stand there with 3 of them and basically string out 2 inches away from each other and use their stringy arms to get themselves 6 inches away from your units to give that aura out. And you need to protect your Zoanthropes, your anything moving up the board. Sometimes you can keep them in range of the Gargoyles, the Neurogants if they're going to get shots. Pretty much the Zoanthropes. There are 3 squads of Zoanthropes that are going to be up there, almost guaranteed. And anything that is an infantry bug is going to get minus to hit. So these guys are just 70 points. They're just sitting there, causing them to take less hits, taking up space, eventually charging into melee when they're at last resort and they've done their job, but it's like 1 turn they're doing that. So these guys accomplish what they need to do pretty darn well. I don't know if in every army they're useful. It is always nice to have minus to hits, and the Zoanthropes are always on, like they're always going to be used in an army. So it's tough to call these not that useful. They're so situational, but the situation is up all the time, right? It's like only useful for a squad of Zoanthropes that are just sitting around them all the time and not wanting to charge off in the distance or stay home and zone. They're sort of just sitting in the mid tier where these guys can sit around them and give them the aura, but you're always going to be running 9 to 15 Zoanthropes. There's just never a time that doesn't call for it. So for that reason, I'm going to keep them in A. I'm actually going to keep them in A. I really will. You're probably not even running them, and you're thinking, why the hell are Venomthropes in A? But they're 70 points, and they're helping your Zoanthropes, and the Zoanthropes are such a key unit. So moving on to the Von Ryan's Leapers. These guys are pretty similar in profile to the Lictor and Deathleaper, but I don't like their defensive and offensive profiles for the cost. They do take up a bit more space, but when they're infiltrating, you don't really need that. You're not zoning in the infiltration area. You're more trying to do sneaky things. So I'm going to put them down here in C. Move them down a bit more. So they do the things that are needed as an infiltrator. They can take the place of these 2 infiltrators, and if you did not have these 2, maybe they'd be somewhere up around here just doing the job of having, like, for a cheap amount of points, it's nice to have an infiltrator in your army. That if you, for instance, get like just a certain weird setup on a map, and the deployment layout is so in such a way that like running out into the objective is very out in the open, right? You're going to clear yourself to be shot, and you probably don't want to do that. And if that's the case, if you already have someone that can hide in that objective, they do not have to run there. So, and also you can just place them anywhere as a character. No, not these. So yeah, they'll be doing that. Fly Tyrants. This guy is, we looked at him earlier, he's got the same ability as the Foot Tyrants, the Will of the Hive Mind. He has Paroxysm, which is targeting a Psyker unit, I think. And this Psyker D3 mortal wounds, 2 up until the end of phase, subtract 1 for attack characteristics of the weapons in that profile. So this one's super cool. And there are probably a Psyker model or unit in every army. The problem is, one, for me, I don't know who they are since there's no psychic phase anymore, so I'm going to have to just like look through your data sheets to find them. And 2, you're not guaranteed that they are going to, 1, be in a group or a model or a unit that needs its attacks, or 2, a model or unit that is near the Hive Tyrant, 12 inches away. Obviously, he can fly to them, but if he's just seeking out this one unit, it better be an important psychic unit that these -1 attacks are making a big impact on. If you like run up to a psychic unit with Custodes that have 5 attacks, well, they're down to 4 and they're still gonna kill you. Yeah, I don't know. He's too hard to keep alive in my mind. Making him your warlord, just too risky. Even with adaptive biology and flying around, you're just gonna be mostly baiting around trying to keep him alive, and it's just too difficult to do. So. Whoa, what was I thinking? Putting him up there. That was a joke. Joke. All right, so definitely C or below. We'll go with low C tier. Yeah, he just doesn't have a purpose, right? He has these good abilities written in, but it's like how do you use him? This one's so like how do you use him in the current meta? How do you keep him on the board when he's a monstrous creature? He can be shot in combat, so basically his melee profile is useless, or you're just gonna, you're gonna have to clear them in one shot, or you're definitely gonna get blown off by everyone else. Yeah, so he's got to stay down there. Winged Prime. This guy has an interesting profile. I've tried him quite a few times. I have put him with the Gargoyles. I have put him with the ranged warriors. I have not put him with the melee warriors. He has the sustained hits. He probably fits his own profile with the melee warriors best, but the ranged warriors are just better than them and cheaper. Winged Prime. Winged Tyranid Prime. Ugh. Okay, so yeah, he gives the sustained hits, which is cool if you don't already have it from the adaptation. And then if it's destroyed by a melee attack, it hasn't fought, then it can fight. It's kind of cute. It's only 85 points, but 6 attacks with nothing. No, yeah, I mean, come on, this is a character. He doesn't have anything for his hit roll, and then 6 -1, 2 up. It's an alright, like it's gonna club some Space Marines, but like 5 toughness, 4 up save, no invuln save. 6 wounds, they're going to club him right back. He doesn't have anything to survive, and he wants to be in melee. I just don't know where his usefulness, where his utility is. The only way I could see him is a big group of ranged warriors. They taking advantage of the sustained hits. They get the ability to fall back, shoot, and charge again. So with them together like that, I'd say that might be like best of both worlds. Sort of utilize the both of them at their top tier. Trying to utilize 2 low tier units. I don't want to move him all the way down to D, but he's low. He's low here. We'll get him right there. Alright, Zoanthropes. Zoanthropes, straight up here. Zoanthropes. Nope, not quite. So close. The Biovore, still highest utility. Zoanthropes, second place in the army. They gotta be second place. This profile, when we first saw it, everybody was like, I don't know, is it that good? Is it? we're losing the old ways of the Zoanthrope are so long beyond us, where they were 70 points per model. Now they're only 30 points per model, and they did all these wounds in the psychic phase, mortal wounds in the psychic phase, very annoying to deal with, but they were the same basically defensive profile with one extra wound, and basically before it just was like ultra high utility. Take these Zoanthropes off the board. Do not let them cast these psychic phase abilities each turn. Their smites did more damage basically. They are cheap, so they still fall down if you shoot at them, but there are 3 other squads of Zoanthropes that you're running. You're not hindered. A squad of Zoanthropes before was 70 times 3, 210 points. 210 points for 3 Zoanthropes. Now you get 7, basically. You can't run 7, but you get 7, the equivalent of. So there are tons of them. They are your tank killers. This lethal profile works incredible, but also if you are shooting at for example, Custodes Guard, you will get the sustained hits from your adaptation. You're going to choose the sustained hits against infantry, and then you'll have the lethal hits, roll up 3 6s there, and just absolutely devastate whatever is in front of you. And then if you have the Exocrine shooting for these guys, they're re-rolling the 1s. Hitting on 3s, re-rolling 1s is just the only way to really combat these guys is subtract to the hit roll some way. They suffer from that. They don't have a ton of shots, unless, of course, you're talking about their alternate shot, which is Blast. 6 Zoanthropes shooting D3 number of attacks at Blast at D3 damage, Strength 7 minus 2 AP. Like a group of 6 Zoanthrope literally will one-shot a Genestealer cult group of 20. Now, you need to be within 12-inch range. You're going to get hit with that, stratagem, but still. I definitely lost the tier list. Okay, so definitely number 2 unit in the army. That's basically everything. I'm going to hit these flyers real quick. The Harpy with the Spore Mines, he went up in cost. That was so weird, I guess, because the Spore Mine dropping and Spore Mines are useful. They thought that everything that drops Spore Mines should be hit. I just don't understand this one. I guess I'll just I don't see the value in them at this much cost, but that if Games Workshop saw the need to nerf them, I'll stick them in high C. High C, great drink, and then we'll go ahead and stick in low C. Hive Crone, there it is. So his profile stayed pretty much the same. He's always been pretty good. There are more flying units thanks to the shared keywords now that you are basically giving your whole unit fly. But still, there's just not enough situations where he is really, these 4 attacks, anti-vehicle, 4-up, devastating. It's just not enough. So I'm going to put him down in D. These 3 guys aren't there. That's pretty much it. I think this tier list is, let's see what we got. Pyro. I think this is right where I'd keep it. I kind of want to move some of these guys around, but I'm not going to do it. I like it. So we'll call it right here. That has been a very long tier list. I did not expect this to take so long. So I have put a lot of games into Tyranid. I know I'm missing a few of these. There are some plays, some strats that I haven't run, that I'm underutilizing. I haven't taken the Carnifexes out of reserves enough times to see that blistering assault. Maybe they're just easily getting into combat. But, I think this is a pretty good idea of where the Tyranids stand right now, and the units that are helping these top tier guys, the competition players, go from what was 16th best army to number 6 I think. So yeah, moving on up, and keep it up, guys. Also, like and subscribe for more strategic content. I don't know. Like and subscribe to strategize things.